Hi,
Okay, you're good.
Facebook world and Zoom world out there, and all our clients here in Syracuse, New York. And today you've got all three wise business coach counselors here to help guide you. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what's going to be going on for you as far as when you're taking a look at 2021 and what that planning is going to look like for you, and just what might work, what is work. We've had three different perspectives of what we might do, and some of it is going to overlap and some of it might be new, but it might be a thought for you to think about what you might be able to grab onto in your planning for 2021. So here, this is a little commercial for the Wise Center. So the Wise Women's Business Center helps female business owners in Central New York and getting a few clients more towards Eastern New York, towards Albany, to develop smart and successful business strategies. We are your guide. We are your support in really putting the thing that you want out in the world. And also, if you're already in business, we're going to help guide you. So we offer free one-to-one coaching. We want free online learning and free virtual networking opportunities like this, because we are 100% committed to your success. So we want to be there for you. And later on, we'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll put something up in the chat that if you're interested in talking to one of us and getting some counseling, getting some coaching in regards to your business and the thing that you want to birth out in the world, you can contact us. And last, I got to just share something before I'm going to turn it over to Caeresa. On Monday, one of my clients, after talking to her, she goes, Barb, do you know what you are? She says, you're a birthing coach. And I'm going like, I'm a what? You're a birthing coach, because she says, you know what you do is you help guide us put the things we want out in the world. What better compliment? So if you have a passion or you have something that you want to do, we can help you birth it and move it forward. So with that, Caeresa, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Barb. I absolutely loved that introduction. Mainly, I love your comment about us being a birthing coach, because you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
You're really like, when you go into business for yourself, it's something small that germinated inside of you, right? And it's this percolating little baby that grew and grew over time, and now you're about to give birth to it. Or maybe you're even at the start, you don't even know how to percolate that idea. And similar to a doula or midwife, we are here to help guide you through that journey. So I really love that, Barb. Thank you. Thanks for creating that.
It made my Monday, and it's made my week.
No, that made mine as well. And I'm not sure, Lacey, you could probably relate as well.
Kind of. I had 2 kids and a breach at home. I will forever be done with birthing anything. So I'm kind of like,
Oh, I completely agree. This kitchen is closed. So on that note, we are going to transition to goal setting. So, actually using that trope and that metaphor of bringing something to birth, even when you have, if you are a mom, you probably can relate that you planned to when you found out, or as you were coming up with this idea of bringing this baby into the world, you sort of made a plan for it as you were going through the journey. And so as we're moving into 2021, moving into the new year and closing out 2020, I think, it's very timely that we're talking about quote unquote goal setting. And actually, Barb and Lacey, if you don't mind, are we okay with not using, I don't even want to say like not using the word goal, but why don't we like set our own, what do you want to call it? Our own rules for that word.
Intention, target, process, I think because goal to me gets so, hard, and it's like, we're always in a process when we're trying to get that thing that we want to do, but we need to measure it. We need to take a look at it. We need to know where we're going. We need that vision as to what we want to accomplish. And Phyllis, welcome. Joni, welcome to our Power Hour. So please.
And welcome to everyone. Yeah, welcome to everyone that's actually joining us live on Facebook. We do have visibility to your comments. So feel free. We want this to be an open dialogue as we get to our point of the conversation. But do feel free to ask questions and jump in. If you're on the Zoom, feel free to unmute and show your video if you would like as you ask questions, or just leave them in the chat as well. So how I like to start looking into the new year, I like to evaluate my current year. So as a business owner, I think this is really, really important as we're talking about goal setting, that we first look at our performance. How did we do this year? What went well? What didn't go well? What are some of the milestones or goals that we had for 2020 that we modified? How did we pivot this year? And what things stuck? Why did they stick? And try to use our stakeholders, customers, friends, family, investors, if you have them for your business. Try to use our stakeholders to help us answer those questions. What do you think about that, Barb and Lacey?
So I'm going to add on that. Absolutely. I think that, we need to end up, especially 2020. It has been a year that has been unprecedented. And also, I think that what we ever thought was going to happen in 2020 didn't. So I agree. I think we need to really take a look at what worked for us this year, what worked in your plan, what worked in your path, and so that you can learn from it. And then also, what didn't work? Because there's always a lesson in what didn't work. And there's a lesson work so that you don't repeat it again. And what happened there? But it's also like, what do you think you need to change? I really believe that, again, you use that word pivot, and it's like, how do we take that change? How do we take a look at our situation and see it from a different perspective? And always going back to the learning. What did we learn so that we cannot, again, not repeat it, and also not seeing anything as a failure, because there's so much learning for us in that failure or what we perceived as a failure from there. So those are, just want to add on to that. And Lacey, do you have anything there that you'd like to add to our conversation so far?
I always have something to add. Backing up a little bit, what I love the most about the three of us as the coaches is we're all so different in how we do things. So it makes us so freaking well-rounded. I love the word goal. I have no negative connotations. It's defined as the result or achievement to which an effort is put towards. So to me, it's the perfect word for what we're doing. I want to put my effort towards something very specific. So I'm 100% goal oriented in almost everything I do, including hobbies. I have to have an end I'm working towards. In the process of that, we'll build habits and intentions. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest ways I've always done that is to do a time audit, looking back. When we think about what works and what doesn't, it's easier in an arbitrary sense. Hindsight's 2020. I can usually find where things went awry by looking at my calendar though, and saying, okay, this is where my time was spent. Mostly this is where it needed to be spent. Oh, yep, there we go. There's like 5 canceled appointments, and because I book everything. I don't delete things, but I have a certain way I keep my calendar so that when I do my time audit at the end of the month and at the end of the year, I can kind of see like, okay, this is not, I'm not putting my effort in the right place right now.
So
I love that, Lacey, because you just gave us a tool that you mentioned. It's a tool that you're using at the end of something, but it's also a tool that people, I think, business owners could certainly benefit from throughout the year as they're managing their business, doing this time audit and looking at how you're spending your time. Is it the most valuable use of your specific time as the owner of that business, or is it time to hire somebody?
Or is it
for some help?
I'm spending my time with this ancillary BS stuff. See, Caroline, I didn't swear that time. I'm learning. With the ancillary secondary stuff, because I'm procrastinating doing the actual stuff because I don't want to be seen, or I don't think I'm worthy enough of success, or I'm not ready to do the big stuff because I might get what I want and I don't think I deserve it yet. Whatever, totally taking it into a different context, we can really do those time audits as a way to see what's holding us back. So they absolutely should be done at the end of every month, every quarter, and then at the end of every year.
You know,
I'm sorry, Barb. Go ahead.
I was going to end up saying, you know, what you ended up doing, I have this planner, and in it kind of like, you know, I try to plan for my day, what, you know, I need to get accomplished. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, so what was my roadblock from from not being able to do what I needed to do? Did I riff on something that was unproductive, or did I get involved in something? What was a tangent that went away from there? So I agree, however you're going to do it in whatever time frame, is taking a look at, well, why couldn't you do that? Or what was going on for you, and learning from that.
Yeah, failure is a word I've grown to love. Growing up, it was always that, oh, don't be a failure because that's a loser. And it's kind of like, I get the most from failing. So is it really that big boogie monster that's going to define me? No, but it will define my experience. And I learn a hell of a lot more from failing than I do from getting everything I want the first time around. Yeah. So really redefining and actually going to the dictionary to what failure means. It's okay to not get everything done when you want it done. It's okay to miss a benchmark. It's okay to not hit your goal. You're still going to land somewhere. So that's where you're going to figure out where you're holding yourself back.
Yeah. So something just came to mind as we were talking about that. I'm just writing some notes because we're really catching some great meat in this conversation. But I think it sounds like a lot of what we're talking about it pulls us back to how each of us personally, or how you as a business owner define value and success for yourself and for your business. It's sort of like circling back to that. So when you're thinking about your annual goal planning or milestone setting, I would say, you know, I always say to even myself, how do you define success for, like, what would make 2021 successful to you? What would make this month or next month successful to you? Yeah, that's what I think about.
Piggyback off of that in terms of goal setting, everyone seems to talk about next year, 2021. I cannot get behind setting 2021 without setting out 2031. Where do I want my long-term vision to be? Where's my 10-year goal? And then cutting that in half for my 5-year. And then, okay, let's break that down so that I know what I'm doing next year. Because you're right, Caeresa, without that end result of this is what I want success to look like for me, It could be anything from, I want to be seen as an expert in my field. I want to sell my company for $300 million. I want to whatever. Without that end goal, using it for the definition provided earlier, how can you plan 2021 and feel successful? You'll hit all your goals and still kind of be like, meh, what was it for? So when you're goal setting, don't be scared to put in the extra work to do your 10-year and dial it back to see what your 1 year should be.
I always tell my clients, Lacey, I love that. I always tell them, don't forget to dream. So as we're stepping through building our business, a lot of times, like, we hit the one goal, right? You know, I opened this beautiful brick and mortar, but I don't forget to dream. I have to still take those dedicated periods of time, and it is dedicated periods of time. Block off an hour or two a day where you're not doing anything but dreaming and writing it down. We can't forget to do that as business owners, because that's what connects you back to your big picture, like what Lacey is saying. What is your end goal? Why are you doing all of this? You know, what is it? What is the big picture? And then your annual goals or quarterly goals or whatever it is, your short-term goals should be tying you into and marching you towards those larger, the end goal, right? The big picture.
I'm gonna piggyback on the success, you know, because it's like, to me, and I kind of similarly, I kind of draw for my clients, it's success is like it's like a spiral going uphill, because as you are trying to put that success out there, there's going to be, like we talked about, failures, which aren't really failures. It's just all learning opportunities. But I also think that there's a balance between success and happiness. It's like, what, as I move forward, I think about my career in manufacturing, which was a 25-year career in manufacturing that was quote unquote successful. I climbed the ladder and I made money and everything. But was I really fulfilled? Was I really happy? And it's like, so there's like a balance as we keep planning that 10 years, 5 years, and then the year and breaking it down. I think that there's a balance that we're always needing to put into check a little bit. How is that fulfilling us? And what is going on that's changing that might change our direction a little bit?
Donald Miller and Rachel Hollis both talk about, in terms of goal setting, not forgetting to do personal goals when you do your business goals. So you should have both side by side. Otherwise, yeah, there is no balance, and all of a sudden you're wrapped up in something and forgetting about the people you're actually doing it for and with. And Rachel Hollis goes so far as to promote, you shouldn't start your day without a 5-minute timer to write your 10-year dream, so that's fresh in your head when you start your day. But Barb, I drew your path of success. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It goes all, you know, however it goes, you know, it's like we put something out there and then it's like, oh, well, all right, didn't go exactly the way I want. And I got to share a quote that I had a client this morning. And when I started working with her back in June, she was like, okay, I want to have this thing done by November. And then as she started working on it, she recognized it wasn't going to happen. And we talked about it, and she's continuously doing the things like we're talking about, writing things down. She's working on her dream builder, her business plan. And she ended up saying to me, she goes, change makes my dream more realistic. So what she was realizing was she put this thing out there. She thought she was going to do it, but as it happened, it was like tweaking itself. And so then she recognized that as it was tweaking itself, it was becoming really, really real, because things aren't going to happen necessarily the way we exactly think it's going to happen. And I'm going like, okay, between birthing coach and then change makes things more realistic. And I'm going like, Thank you for that. The pearls of wisdom. So yeah. So thanks for drawing my success thing.
I got you, Barb. Oy. There's that belief or quote, that whole we don't get to our destination, or we don't hit our long-term vision on accident. You have to plan for it. And if you only go year by year by year, at the end of 10 of those, who knows where you're going to end up being.
Yeah.
You need that long-term bullseye as much as you're looking at the here and now.
Yeah.
How about some tools, ladies? What tools do you use, or would you suggest to use for two things? One, what do you use currently to help you not forget to dream? Like how do you do that? I think it might be helpful for people to know. I personally, I have a journal, that I keep. I have a personal journal, and I have one literally just for Gypsy Freedom, that I use to dream in every day. What tools do you guys use to help keep you connected to that long-term goal?
Quick shout out to Eileen on Facebook for taking the shot to try to plan 2021, because 2020 has been so difficult with pivoting. Sometimes it can be daunting to think about that. So good for you for putting that out there.
I love the word shifting she used, shifting my goals, because you have to. One of the things is, Caeresa, going to your point, a tool that I use is, not only do I like to write daily for myself in journaling and what's going on, what's working, what's not. I'm a visual person. I just like to see things, and I like to see things so mapped out. And think, Lacey, you're talking about where do you want to see yourself in 10 years and then 5 years. And what I end up doing is I actually get a 2021, I haven't gotten it yet, a 2021 wall calendar that I can write on with the, black marker. And that I can kind of start seeing as I have these milestones that I want to put out for 2021, I can end up saying, all right, this is what I want to accomplish by when. And now I can start backwards scheduling it, and then start taking a look at it and breaking it up. And we talked about this earlier. It's like, whether you want to use milestones or goals or whatever, you break it up in chunks and you make it into habits. Lacey, you use the word habit. And so I'm a visual person. I like this year, and I like to say, okay, I want to have done this by then, and look at it quarterly. And then I start backwards scheduling. And Caeresa, you can attest to this in the manufacturing world, backwards scheduling. Okay, so if I want to accomplish that by this date, what are all the pieces that I need to put in place? And then break it up quarterly, break it up monthly, and if you need to, weekly. And then I have a daily planner that I use so that that's my tool to see how well am I doing to what I initially thought I was going to plan on. And then I go, well, what worked? What didn't work? Okay. And what do I need to change? But at least it gives me that visual and a reminder that this is where I'm going.
Yeah. So I love the tools that we've introduced. We've talked about my journal. We've talked about your wall calendar. Lacey, you shared about time audits. And again, I really think that's a valuable tool to use throughout the year. I'd love to go back and revisit Eileen's comment on Facebook. So just thinking about planning for 2021 was a success for me. So much has happened in 2020. And having to pivot to adjust to the new normal made shifting my goals challenging. Very interesting statement. And so much in there. I'd love to know a little bit about thinking about planning for 2021 was a success. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that, because I agree. Like sometimes when we set our intention, like this is what I'm going to do, I'm planning for next year, even that just gives you that extra nudge to get serious about your business and to think about those components of your business that are important to you, as well as how you define success and value for your business. Do you ladies find that just like setting the intention of, okay, I'm goal planning for the next week or the next month or the next quarter or the next year, do you find that just setting that intention, even just that as a start, does a lot for you?
Honestly, for me, the only time that is powerful or impactful or means something is when it's in relation to my long-term vision. So again, going back to that, I have my 10-year goal, my 15-year goal set. When I can then break it down and say, this is the first step, then I feel like on top of the world and I got this, and usually scared enough to want to wet my pants as well because we're doing big things at that point. But it also shows that self-compassion and showing ourselves grace when crap hits the fan is super, super important. Without that long-term vision, how do we pivot in a way that is authentic to our purpose and mission? And being able to say, yeah, these sales goals are not getting hit. This other goal is not going to get hit because you're in this major recession or we're shut down or whatever the case. Being able to show ourselves compassion and grace with, I'm still hitting other goals. I'm still going to shift in this way to achieve my overall goal. It just may take a different path. Is so super important. And I think that's where goal setting gets a bad rap, is when something comes up and we miss a goal or we miss by a long shot. It's very easy to say, oh, I suck, I didn't do it, this isn't working. When in actuality, it's time to show compassion and grace, yell plot twist, and take a different path in an avenue. Mary Molnar, client of mine, told me the other day, self-compassion is more badass than self-confidence. I was like, yes, truly is.
So, there's a comment here from Joni. She goes, thinking long-term does feel like an accomplishment, especially since my business is new and I'm not really sure what is a realistic achievable goal yet. And it's like, yeah, so we just kind of like get it into the flow. And it's like, to me, it's like you ended up saying what's working, what's not working, the failures, and learning from it. And it's like, then it's almost like things change. And going back to the comment about intentions, I truly believe that even as Joni is talking about putting this thing out and it's new and it's like, what is that goal? It's because this is what we want to achieve, but the intention is that you've put it out to, I believe, God in the universe, and things can start coming together and start becoming more tangible. And until you put that intention out there, and unless you really are strongly putting it out from your heart and from your gut, you don't know what's going to come. And then it's just you are going to go into that flow, and it's going to be a movement. I ended up hearing a gentleman speak recently, Marcus Buckingham. He talked about leadership. He talked about, and we're all leaders of ourselves and we're leaders of our organization, but we're always in movement because we need to be moving with what's happening. Things have changed, like 2020 with COVID, it's a movement. So we've had to, but we've got the intention that we want to put this business out in the world and then see what comes back to us and be ready for that movement.
So I wanted to actually, I love Joni's comment, and I want to circle back to two words that resonated with me. She goes at the end, I'm not really sure what is a realistic and achievable goal yet. And I hear you, Joni, you're saying that as you're a new business. I'm going to throw this one question out to the three of us to chat about. And please, if you're on Facebook and Zoom, please leave it in the comments. What's a realistic and achievable? What is realistic or achievable for the rational, metrics-driven business owner? How do we define this? It's a challenge that I find. I'm highly quantitative, very metrics-driven. And as a business owner, you have to sometimes think irrationally. Things that may not seem realistic might actually be realistic for you. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a valid question that she's asking or statement that she's saying, because it's a challenge that we all battle internally as business owners, because a lot of what we do as business owners, it's risky. That's what defines you as a business owner, is you're actually taking risk, right? Many times it's you quantify your risk as an investment and all of these things, but really what we're doing is we're jumping off cliffs that no one else would even walk close to.
Dude,
right?
Nothing about what we're doing is rational. When you say that, Caeresa, we have to be irrational. Yeah.
You're like karate chop these ideas.
Right? No, give up the steady income and start something new and try to do it in a way no one else has done before. That makes sense. Said no one. Except
right. Said no one ever that owned a business
see the
or
passion
started one.
or a need, or we have a long-term vision, which is why you started. And the only thing that makes it rational or irrational is your belief in whether or not you can do it.
How many times when I decided to leave my career, people, and I sent them like a coming out letter, and I got back like, Barb, what in the world are you doing? I'm going like, I am putting this thing that I want in the world, and I am going to be starting this business. Whether, yes, to them it was irrational, but to me it was like this passion, this thing that I just needed to do.
So, but I want to tease this a little bit, because if we're business owners, there is a way that we can, I hesitate to use the word realistic, but there is a way that we can benchmark, right? So I think, like you said, Lacey, it's about your belief in your plan, in your business and your idea. I think it's also about your plan, actually developing a plan. That's why it's so important. And then how you execute your plan, the connections you're making, the, innovation that you're doing to bring your plan to light and make sure it's successful. We do these things every day in our own personal lives. We really, really do. If you really think about it, 2020 was and is still a tough year. Many people were laid off. Many people owned businesses and they closed, but those people are still eating. Those people are still clothed. You know what I mean? So we still, however they're doing it, we do this every day. We figure out a way. And as business owners, we do that too.
Yeah. Every single moment you have to find a way.
It's that grit and that hustle. I think that makes us as business owners, it gives us that ability to do things that other people would think is irrational. It gives us the ability to fly over cliffs that no one would walk next to.
You know what? Fly off the cliff and then put the wings on, put the parachute on, because then you're going to find that direction and then go with the wind as to what you need to do.
So the test is to figure out if it's rational or irrational, according to you, is put your overall vision down on paper, back it up, cut it in half to your 5-year plan or whatever, back it up to next year. And if you look at the numbers for next year and you're like, holy crap, that's impossible, try it again. If you look at it and you get excited and you're like, holy crap, this is gonna be a lot of work, but we're freaking doing it, then you're fine. It's all in your response to what those numbers are. And yeah, sometimes it's a game of tweaking numbers until we get to a spot where we are comfortably uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. That's a key. Uncomfortable. You're tweaking the numbers and then you tweak your plan because things change. And what is it that you need to do to be able to accomplish it?
And for people who are used to being uncomfortable, who are ready for like the graduate class, just go so far where you're logically like, I can do this, but just completely uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So ladies, you know my engineering brain. I wrote a formula for this. You ready for it?
Sure. Go for it.
All right. You see that? That's my start of my formula. But I think we have something here, what we're talking about. So realistic goal setting for the small business owner. Let's talk about that. I think it is, and I'm curious to hear you all. I would say you start with your long-term, like you're saying, Lacey. You pull it into your short-term. So you break that long-term down into short-terms. So if your long-term is a 10-year goal in your head, you're saying it's 10 years, who cares about whether or not anyone else says it's 5 or whatever, or 20, right? You're going to write down whatever you think it is, 10 years. And you're going to break that down all the way to what are you going to start doing now? And really what you're thinking about as you're breaking it down into your short term is, how will I get there? How am I getting to this 10-year? And then I always love to benchmark against what other people have done. How have other people, how have they gotten there? Or how have they gotten close? If no one's achieved what you're hoping to achieve, how have they gotten close? And I think as you go through that thought process, you will start to determine for yourself what is realistic and what isn't. So if I'm saying my 10-year goal is to do something, right? Like Lacey said, sell my business for 300 million. I'm going to look at what other people have done to sell their businesses. And I'm going to try and like create these steps, right? And if I see, and as I'm planning this out, you know, if I see, I put something in there that to myself, my gut is telling me, I can't do this in a month, you know, something, you know, my goals, you know, in order to get to my 10-year, looking at what other people did, it says that I have to recruit investors. And in order to get to this level, I'm, you know, saying in my plan, I need to recruit 50 investors by the end of this month, right? You know, and you say to yourself, looking at that, like, I can't actually do that. Like if I actually, you know, that's 2 a day, you know, I can probably only do 1 person a week. That is how, in my opinion, that's how you develop a quote unquote realistic goal and realistic milestones for yourself, especially as a new business owner, because you're not going to have data other than what other people have done.
Or just do, like you said, I'm a really big believer in time. I struggle with an autoimmune thing. So for me, it's don't really care what anyone else does. I know how much energy I have. So this is what I can do during the day. Here's how many working hours I have in a day. Here's what could get in my way and how do I control all that? And I use the word control very loosely because let's face it, we don't have any. So control what I can control and be ready for whatever comes my way as a big plot twist to getting me to where I want to go in a more interesting way than I thought of it.
You know, Caeresa, you were one of the things first of all, Lacey, I love what you can control and what you can't control. You know, how many times we try to control something that we can't and we go into crazy town. But, you know, Caeresa, one of the things you were talking about was about benchmarking, and probably last month I think we were talking about business plan 102, and you know, it's also remembering you don't have to go it alone as you are developing these plans and developing your goals. Think about bringing your team, your bail team or your guides on board in helping you see potentially, is there something that you're not seeing that they might see, and they might help and guide you for it. And that's what we do here at the Y Center. But think about, you know, your accountants, your lawyers, and the people. And I think somewhere along the lines, Caeresa, you're talking about your stakeholders, your shareholders. How, you know, maybe they'll see something that you can't see from their perspective.
Also, I think this is a great time for our halfway commercial. If this sounds amazing and interesting and you're totally in love with Barb, Caeresa, and myself, and you're like, I need more of this, Carolyn is going to post the link on how to get hooked up with one-on-one business counseling, because it's free to you guys thanks to generous grants and donations.
Awesome. So I think, why don't we touch on another one of the goal planning topics that we had. So we talked about starting high level, breaking it down. We talked a little bit about evaluating the prior year. Actually, before we move forward, I want to go back to that because I feel like we didn't spend a lot of time there. You mentioned, Lacey, time audits, you know, so that's a great way to evaluate how you spent your time and how you identified value over this past year. I think it's also important and necessary as business owners that we look at the financials, right? Mm-hmm. How did we do last year? What went well? What didn't in terms of financials? How do you ladies do that? Like, and what tools do you use?
So for right now, I'm keeping track of, like, you know, a monthly, you know, and I break it down even to weekly and end up saying, how did I do based upon where I thought I was going to be? Because I think that that's really also very important. And it's also developing some of your key metrics for your business. Like for me, it may be how many coaching or how many conversations did I have to being able to have a sales call. How many, and what is that, what's the turnover rate that I was able to get them on board. So there are different, everybody's going to have something that's a little bit different for each one of your businesses. But this is, so I look at the financials, you've got the dollar numbers, but I've also got other key metrics that are important for me to be able to keep track of how well am I doing as I am moving towards the plan that I want to achieve, and also what needs to be tweaked to get there.
I think in addition to financials, it's easy, especially when we're in like year 1, 2, and 3, where the goal seems to be just to make money versus a certain dollar amount. It's hard when we're new to not get discouraged sometimes when we look at those financials. So I think it's also important to realize and keep track of the metrics that don't typically have a dollar sign, but are invaluable. Like, how many contacts did you make? How many centers of influence or referral sources did you make contact with? How did you lay the groundwork for hiring employees and delegating? Like, financials are hugely important, but there are key activities that lead to financials that need to be kept track of first as well, especially in those first few years.
And I think what you're talking about, Lacey, is the key difference between qualitative and quantitative metrics. Absolutely. So in terms of qualitative metrics, how has your reach grown? You know, how many, you know, and I agree with you. It's absolutely important to have those at the front of, as a part of your plan, your initial plan and goal setting. And you can measure those as well if you really think about them. So financially, how much are you willing to invest to get those qualitative goals? or those qualitative metrics hit. I think it's important to, as business owners, we really do have to take that into account, because we'll find ourselves trying to only invest in things that give us an immediate return and forget about those qualitative things that really contribute to that return as well. So I think that's such a great point, Lacey.
Thanks. When we're talking about bootstrapping a company, I'm hugely passionate about this, because I felt like there wasn't a lot of resources out there for me when I was starting new with no investors, no funds to really consider. When people talk to me about like, what's your marketing budget? It was like, shoestring? Low. Sometimes it's easier to think about the percentages. So the bulk of my reinvestment needs to be in marketing or whatever. So don't get too hung up on the fact of, oh, well, I don't have a budget because I don't have money. You're going to. So think of it in terms of percentage, so that 6 months down the road, when you do get going and it's time to make some decisions, you can say, okay, well, 60% of this is going here, 20% goes here, 5% goes here, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I always like to say, when you're thinking about investments, especially, as business, we have to invest, and we invest our time, our energy, but we got to also invest dollars. Unfortunately, capital is necessary to grow and sustain your business. But as what I hear you saying, Lacey, is as you're determining these investments and you're thinking about like, what percentage of my overall income am I willing to invest? I always urge people to look at what's going to be the impact on your business if you do invest. You can look at that qualitative, you can look at that quantitative, however you define value in that impact. I think it's important to, as you're evaluating your investments, you're thinking about that. So things that have high impact, you should be investing in. It just, right? It's like the dynamic of scales, right? So you have to invest more in those areas that you see are going to have high impact. And sometimes those high impact areas are qualitative, relationship building, personnel, to free up your time to do other revenue generating activities, things like that. So I agree with you, Lacey. It's looking at what's going to have impact, and how will this impact my business, and how much do I value that impact? Because what you're saying when you say, actually, I don't have the money for that, what you're saying is, I don't value that right now. That's okay. But just know that that's what you're saying,
But I think also we went back to intentions, and you put the intention now that, yes, I need that money for this because this is going to make impact. And keeping in mind that there isn't just one number you're watching. There's so many different numbers, some key, and that's one of the things as a business. What are your key numbers you need to be looking at regularly so that you know that you're moving towards that goal? It can be financial. It can be, how many contacts, how many calls, what was my conversion rate? How many people walked into your store, Caeresa? And, and from there, and how many sales, but there are so many different items that may need indicators that might need to be looked at, and everybody's business is going to be a little bit different. So you need to determine what it is that you need to be able to think, is this moving forward towards that vision, that thing I want to put out in the world?
So ladies, we are hitting our timeline. It is 10 of or close to it. So do we want to do our last round of last words of advice before we sign off?
Yes. I think that's a great idea, Lacey. You're full of those.
I'm full of something.
So I will say, for me, one thing I mentioned, don't forget to dream, right? We have to keep doing that. Don't forget to dream irrationally, weird, crazy dreams, right? Things that other people will say, that's not possible dreams, right? Because that's what keeps you innovative and creative and moving forward in different directions. I think it's really, really important that we do that, especially as women business owners, because we're being compared to people that have already been established in many of these industries for very long periods of time. So we have to do things differently.
So I'm going to end up saying, again, taking a look at what's working, what's not working, what did you learn, what needs to change. And that has to be done regularly, because your business, your vision, the plans you're putting in place are going to be constantly changing. So you're going to be learning from there. And there is no right or wrong way of getting there. It's your way of doing that. So, and also, I want you to remember that change is inevitable, and the change is going to bring upon clarity for you and making what you want realistic. So just put that intention out there for what you want, and forget about everybody else who thinks you're crazy, because you know you got it. You got it, girlfriends.
I guess I'll round it out with start big and then dial into small. Know what you're planning for as you're planning for next year, and really do you, and do not let anyone define success for you. Make up your own, because what we're doing is clearly not entirely rational. All right, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for such an amazing time. I appreciate all of you.
Yeah, this was an incredible session. And thank you, Barb and Lacey, for helping to lead it.
It was great to be here, all three ladies, all three coaches on one power hour. So great to see you. And everyone, thank you for joining us on Zoom and then Facebook.
And we will see you, I believe, next year. This is our last power hour for the year, right?
Yeah, we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Bye.